Thank you.
And then also we laughed at her because, we're like, oh, we need to move office, so we just close, walk, and open. And she's like, I need to shut down, wait, then boot up.
Sorry. All right, guys. So I apologize first for not having a whole bunch of slides. I tried to put something together this morning.
No slides?
Yeah, there's a couple of slides, but they're worthless. So, I've got terminal windows, so I'm just going to open up a terminal in a minute.
Will you be offended if we follow along with Sigwin?
That's fine.
Okay, good.
It shouldn't work. So all the stuff I'll do will be all like Bash 2.0 stuff, which is 10 years old.
How many versions of Bash are there?
More than that.
So what version is current?
Current is like 4.
Okay.
So basically, we'll give a quick history. We'll start doing some stuff that you can integrate with Git that I think would be pertinent to most people here, and then we'll just go from there. So Bash originated back in just about 1988. If you look at the man page, it'll say 1989 when they released it from a gentleman named Brian Fox. All right, and the idea behind it was they wanted a free version of shell script interpreter to put on non-Unix systems. So. And it's part of the Free Software Foundation, so Richard Stallman and all those guys probably helped get it going. So it basically supports SH, C shell, and Corn shell. I'm not sure if anybody still uses those, because basically this is now the default. Those shells for PostFix operating systems, but most free OSs that come out these days. So any new hobby OS is probably going to have a Bash. Okay, so Bash 3, version 3 supports in-process projects. So you're going to be doing shell commands for your projects, which I want to show you that. Unless we get into it later on. And then 4 has support for associated arrays, which again, I don't have any stuff to do that. Alright, so it helps. If you don't know something, there's 3 ways to figure it out. And mostly this is just symptoms of learning how to use your system in Linux or Mac or anything that's Unix-based. You just do command, space command will give you the default manual pages. You do command -help, and then also info program will give you a more detailed walk type of system. So I have a few ones there. So basically, I'll go back. So we have pipelines. So basically, you're going to put commands into another command, which is going to pipe command data back to another command. So that's pretty much how you're going to pass data from one shell script program to another, or any other command line program. List, I'll get into that. That's where you can do, give me everything in the list that starts with letter A, it'll just loop through all your files. So basically you can generate iterators, enumerator stuff. Okay, so also, basically, the search and replace type of commands are going to be your grep, your find, and your send. Grep is going to be your find inside of a file. Find will be find your files themselves. And send will be your search and replace regular expression engine. So beyond that, we've got sorting for files. We've got a command called sort, unique, which will remove duplicates, split, and word count, which is WC, which you'll find yourself using often. And what is this? Word count. So you can count the number of words in a file, the number of lines, all kinds of little file statistics based on those type of things. So you might do a diff between 2 files and say pipe to word count, give me the number of lines, and tell you how many things changed on a line-by-line basis. Or if you were doing an essay, you need 500 words, essay. So
why is there a colon in front of sort?
Because I just typed in these stuff in here. This isn't. I was trying to give you the ground or the names and the scope that you're dealing with this file. So SEQ is for sequence. That'll generate sequences for you. So if you're trying to do something 100 times, you go sequence 1 to 100, and you've got your basic steps, step by 5, step by 2, etc. You've got your BC, which is your binary calculator. You've got your date command and echo for sending out stuff. We'll be using that a lot. And then, of course, VI or Emacs or any other text editor that you might want to use. So basically, what I decided to do was to try to figure out something to integrate with Git that would basically tell you your branch that you're on and any files that have changed, how many files that you might need to commit and or whatever you want to do. So there's only basically 2 commands that we're going to be listening with here, and that's a get space rev-parse All right, what that's going to be doing is it's going to be showing us if we are in the kid source tree, right? And then the kid status with ribbon and the parse out, bring back how many things have changed, you know, what our branch status is, or etc. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our terminal. Okay. By default on the Macs, I have a weird little color scheme here, so hopefully it shows up. Is that showing up well?
Yeah, it's showing.
Okay. I'm not getting any kid source control, so I'm going to go ahead and get it. Okay. So if I do right now get status, I'm on branch master, and I have nothing's commit. Alright, so what I want to do is eventually want to change my prompt, tell me my folder path. So I'm going to want something that's going to look like this. Alright, it's called sticky. Is it sticky on the Mac? Yeah. Sticky. Okay. So I want something. Give me a second here, it's back this laptop. So what I'm going to want, and I'm sure this is small, but I'm going to want something that's going to say, like master, branch, and like one box. One change. And then my box. So that's what I'm hoping to end up with. Alright, so as you're browsing your source tree in your file terminal, you'll see that. So, first things first, we need to figure out how to get our master branch out. Right? So basically, all I'm going to do here is get status. I'm going to pipe that to my grep branch. Like I said, we switch. I'm going to take off this on branch. And that should be that master. Okay.
What's the last slash?
Okay. So the last slash for searching this is the set command search. Okay. Minus E tells me that I'm going to do a regular expression. I'm searching. The first thing after the slash is what I'm searching for on a branch. And then I'm replacing it with nothing. And then that's a replacement instead.
Do a demonstration where you put something in between the two spaces so they can see the replacement.
Okay. Alright, so basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using these little commands to parse out data here and there, and then build it back what I want. So this is how I generally build stuff. I do one little command at a time. Sometimes I get lucky, right? And then in another window, I'll start writing my shell script. Okay. So, how about that? Of course, I've already done this once, so hopefully I shouldn't fail too many times. And right now, we'll just call this. Okay, so, dash. What you want to do here is you want to create status. You really don't have any like well-known IDs that I'm aware of. Everything is based off command line. Yeah. And this is going to give me my status of my branch. I'll say branch equals. Now, the key that you do here when you're doing a bash script, if you have a variable on one side and you want to run that equals into like the command line that you're typing in, all you do is you put a left like that. A tick, I think you can call it. And then you just encapsulate it inside the ticks. Bash is going to run those commands and then bring back the results into that variable. Okay.
Is the on branch supposed to be uppercase? Does case matter?
Case will matter. And typically you think your variable is uppercase. Because basically this is going to be in the scope of this. You can export this, but generally if you look at your export variables, everything is uppercase. So instead of spaces, you have underscores.
Is that convention?
Yeah, I believe that's convention. So that's just generally what I do. So Control L will clear the screen. That's a keyboard shortcut. Otherwise, you do here. And TLS is in Windows. I have to do this stuff all the time, so I get confused. All right, so of course we have all kinds of commands in Git. Like I said, we don't really want to mess with them. All right, so I'll show you just basically how this works one step at a time. And then we'll fail, and we'll fix a couple things. So we've got the branch. Right now we want to know if there's any files modified. So if I do git status, I don't have anything. It's giving me nothing to add. All right, so if I do a touch test file, okay, what touch is basically we'll create an empty file, or if the file exists, it'll put the current date on it. And you can change the date to something in the past or something in the future. So that's something that comes in real handy. But now I don't have to do anything special. I have a basic file that right now has a date. And if I go to git status, I'll see this test file sitting in there. Alright, so let me do a git command real fast. And I'm not a professional git user, so you bear with me. And add a file. Git command. Okay, so now git status should tell me
Well, you committed, so there's nothing.
okay, I'm missing more things to know. Okay. There's also another git command about git status. Alright, so anyways, we'll move on to that for 1 second here. So let's just try to get the prompt to show us the branch. So the prompt is PS1, we go to branch. So branch 1 second here. This is my whole function that I wrote earlier. That's not just yet. We need to export it. Export PS1. So we know this works. So what you do is you end up escaping stuff. And the way you escape characters or variables, you do it like this. Because you put a $ in front of it. You can do it with or without the curly braces, but it's good. It's better to put it in code braces. If you have spaces, it'll get messed up if you don't have it in code braces.
Make that terminal bigger, or the text inside that terminal bigger.
Thank you.
Yeah, speak up if you need something, because I'm looking at the screen, I'm not looking at you guys right now. Okay, so let's get it. So if I run this, I didn't do anything. Status should say branch. So we'll debug it, right? Current branch. And we'll be doing this a lot. On branch master. Okay, so I'm actually missing something because I'm getting the whole thing. I expect to system master.
Did you say export PS1 or just set PS1?
Oh no. I would set the export in it. If I set it to PS1, it's going to be current to my shell script. As soon as I exit my shell script, it should go back to the default. So I'm exporting it. It's going to set it to make it global. Go ahead.
How global?
Global to your login session.
So global to your terminal session?
Global, yes.
Okay.
Unless you start another bash prompt, and then it goes back to its default. But you can call more bash shell inside of it. Typically, won't do that.
This is the first one that
So
you're missing a slash.
mine.
It's with you.
Oh, it's mine too. That's what I'm doing.
No, there's a minus in there.
You know, I don't need mine necessarily. This is just
Okay, those are text formatting. Is the slash W?
that's these. There's okay. So I'll show you. So I can do it this way, man bash. All right. So give me my information page, and there's a lot of stuff on here. So, oh, that's not
Slash.
Okay. So the base name of the current working directory for the phone, abbreviated with so you open up another one, that one, and just start over here. So if I just do, it only works, I think it only gets escape inside of the PS1. So if we're messing with it, also PS1. Oh, yeah, that was fun. Uh-oh, I'm stuck here.
Yeah, how do you get out?
How do you get out of
stuck
that?
like that?
So-
Control D. Control C.
Control D,
Control D.
and then I was in.
No, I think
in
I feel where
so
Control C does not.
So Control C stops the program. But if you're inside of an input, if I say
Yeah.
go, right, I'm actually typing and stuff.
Yeah,
It's not
Control D.
anything extreme until I hit Control D. Control D. Which messed it up. I know it.
This is good info.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Control D.
Because what I do is
like-
Command T.
Yeah.
Open
it's
up
one of
new
those
tab.
hard- So open Apple W. No, we'll close the window. So we'll go back here to the screen. Alright, so you can do multi-line inputs just by doing a single tick, blah, 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 you know. All day long, you're stuck, right? You can hit Control C, or sometimes it'll kick you out. But if it doesn't, you want to do end of line, end of file, you do Control. So, anyways, so let's try this again. I store PS1 right now. Actually, this is what I can do to figure out what my PS1 is set at. So if I do set, and I'm going to script PS1. This is what my current PS1 is. So that's for PS1.
So PS1 is always set.
Yes, that's your current prompt.
Okay. So that's where it pulls the actual prompt.
Yes. So it's going to escape, you know, it's going to parse all these special characters to whatever. So I don't really want the whole path. So I just want to start off with this. Now, I change the path. Okay. So I've got tilde because that's my home folder. So the current working directory gives you that. All right. There's also something that's called aliasing. All right, we're not doing aliases, so I like color mode. My color command. So now I take an alias. When you don't like that, so how you used to mess with people back in the day was you used to alias like the ls command or the cd command with an R in their directory.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll just make it clear the screen or something.
Say again.
I just make it clear the screen.
Clear
delete the
screen. That's a
program.
nice way to mess with somebody, but I mean, if you
It's
really
all
want
day
to
of work.
too nice, you know, right? So what you do is, if you want to do more than one command, like clear, you do a semicolon. That's like multiple line input. Just answers that, you know, runs that command, runs the next command, etc. If you want to do them all at once, you know, clear just from the beginning. So a lot of times you'll see things that you can do any kind of command you want, and then you either do it on the second line or you put a semicolon and pretend that there's a line. And that'll get you where you want to. So anyways, now I've got that set up. But if I close my windows down and open it back up, it's not going to stick. So the way to fix that is, alright, so you've got the bash RC file. Alright, so I don't have one on this computer.
It's bash RC without the underscore.
Is it?
Yeah, without.
Okay. Well, I do this. Okay, so I'm just going to alias again. Right, and in Linux, it's actually my color equals yes. But in this Mac world, it's minus. Right, so
So
what
G stands for color.
Alright, so if I exit the window, LS. Well, that didn't work. Look at this bash. Oh, I'm failing again.
Might be underscore bash RC.
No, it should be a dot bash.
Yeah, it's not bash RC.
Okay, so what it is there's a bash login shell. You guys are watching me fail. Okay, well, you know what? That's okay. You can source a file, you can see what I'm going to do anyways.
Oh, Max, go to your go to terminal preferences.
Okay.
So I think bash RC only runs on login.
Yeah.
And you have to go to settings and shell. Window. One of those is that it's got a thing that says run as login. If you go to shell, it says only if they're prompting before closing. No, I'm not there. Give us some crazy. There's a login thing.
And you should have one on your system. If your system comes with bash, it's going to have a bash RC file. It's typically created whenever you log in. And what it's going to do is going to usually do something like this: stores your etc skeleton folder bash RC. Which I don't think I have one on that box. So a lot of this stuff is basically old school Linux stuff, right? Because it all depends on whether
I'm sorry, it's on startup. You go to the terminal preferences.
Okay.
You go to that startup tab over all the way to the left. There's the command and default login shell.
Yeah, it's that default login shell. But then login will that's that one here. So if I do a man bash, I should see the Alright, so it should be bash or super underscore. Bash, Oh, really? Well, this is not standard stuff.
Yeah, I've heard of bash RC before. So.
Okay, so it's okay, because all you have to do to get the support to learn this manually when you're working on scripts, especially things that you want to happen on your login, you don't want to log out and log in every time to make it work. So what you do is you run the source command, which basically runs it, interprets it right now, and brings you back without changing your stuff. And now you have to alias. If I unalias LS, LS is not there. So like the source file, source of it. I didn't do that. Now, so that's how you want to test it out. The last thing you want to do is log out, especially if you're working on a remote shell. Make some changes that's going to cause something to not work, which is hard to do, but it can be done. And then try to log back in and fail your logging process. So you don't really want to do that. So is there anything you guys want to stick in here just to mess with me while I'm working on this this prompt?
For the day 8 times.
Is that useful? Okay. All right, so back to the program.
History.
So in this presentation folder, I'm in the repository. And I want to get this branch that I'm on. So let's go ahead and create a couple branches. Get branch, just one, and then branch, just two. Right now, here's another way that I can do here. So I can do before, and you don't have to make a shell script file itself, obviously. You can do it all interpreted right here. So this is what I do a lot. Sequence 1 to 9, 2, branch, and 5. Okay, so let's try this. Sequence. Oh, I don't have sequence on this computer. Oh, that's right. Okay. So, install. Well, I'm not going to go show you this right now. So what that was going to do is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In a loop. Let's create 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, okay. Git status. I have that whole command here. So I should be able to do this right here. So I'll just also type it in there. Git status. Right. I do want the first line. All right. That's what that's doing. And then I'm going to replace the one branch. Just cleans up whatever's left. So I enter over my branch. So when I typed in long, I typed in capital B for branch, it's actually lower this.
What's the case?
Case sensitivity,
And it's a regular expression.
yeah, that's a regular expression. So what I'm doing is I'm actually shelling out to the command back when I do this uptick, running the kit size, piping it to get grep branch, to get the branch line. And branch apparently, or the grep command is apparently not this. So I can go my branch now on master. So that's what we're going with my other stuff. So we can go ahead and do that. Okay, script's going to change. So typically I'll work in two windows like this. One to test out, one to like start committing it to my source. Alright. So we want that in our PS1. So here's we want this. So you say that's one, export this one. So I'm going to tell you one time. And there's more than one PS. I want to do that.
You just unset it.
No, I didn't unset it. You have to actually type it unset. Okay. Okay, so this underscore thing, this underscore equals PS, shows you the last command that I ran. So if you're doing a history, you can see there's PS1, 2, and 4. And I do not remember what it was off the top of my head, but I can look them up for you. So 1, 2 is the first, 4 is I'll go check for you. So we want to set up PS1 equal to, it just goes back to working program. Alright, I want to put the branch in. And then now you can see I'm in my presentation folder of the branch path, right? So we're getting there, right? I got current branch, but we're not going to go down here. It still says master. Right, I'm not on the master folder. So we want that to evaluate every time I do a change here. Alright, so the first thing that I tried doing, I tried my hardest not to look this up, was I just did an alias on CD, CD, blah, 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 all this stuff, and then run the CD command. Well, that doesn't work very well. What happens is you get into another folder and there's another turn branch. So what we need to do is there's actually a prompt command, a function that can access to this. So we'll take that little function and put it in a function called function if branch. Okay. So we want to call this get branch every time. So what we can do to test it is file. Edition at the source of the example and type in the branch. So it actually calculated this current branch master. I got that in my example file. I'll go here, so we'll comment that out. Source of the can to reload it. I just created a function that I can call. If I have to type it in. Alright. So I can call it from anywhere. Now I'm going to get some error messages, because I'm not going to get the file code, so it's not very safe. Okay, and that's where that other command comes in, that I was showing you guys. It just says get rid of parse, my get dirt. Okay, so what that does is get parse. Okay, so all it does is it tells me that there's a git folder, or if I make directory. And inside of my git branch, make another one, continue. Alright, move up here. And tell me my git directory for all the current folder that I'm on is here.
So anywhere in the hierarchy.
Yeah, it's going to find the folder for me. So it's telling me, yes, you do belong to a git source control tree. So don't look for the .git in the current folder, because obviously we have multiple folders and configurations. Alright, so that's important. So what the other most important thing is that I know what it returns as 0. Okay. So this $sign question mark tells me the return code from the last program that ran. So a lot of things that you're going to do is you're going to run a program and you're going to check its return code to see if there's an error or not. So that's your error control. So if I'm running the git folder and I run that same command, it's going to give me an error, and it's going to give me error code 128. Okay. So what we can do here is we can redirect all the output to def null. So if we don't see the output, we can still check the error code. So that's what we're going to do next. So in my git branch, right? I don't want to run this git status unless we're in a git branch folder. So I'm going to do this. If, well, actually, we did more than one. So we'll do a git parse. On the very next line, because it's a line-by-line interpretation. Equals, and you have to put it in double quotes, and you have to do a space in quote. Here's where I'm putting the semicolon. Then, you want to run a branch command and export on dash. And if, so it's backwards. So you would, you read it as in diff. Alright. So you got L, if, else, in diff. 2 letters FI. So I'll move that. Let's go ahead and over a little bit. Alright. I'll come onto the file. Go to my presentation folder. Source it. That's the big branch. There's Y. I can't spell it. That's TBT. Okay. So let's go outputting some stuff because I forgot to. So you've got standard input, standard output, and standard error are your 3 input-output streams. Okay, so if you want to get rid of everything, because if it errors out, you'll still get error messages on the screen. You do the ampersand, greater than, and def null. So you can specify you can put just the output, just the errors, go to certain files. You can separate from 2 things to 2 different files and track just the error messages if you want. But in this case, we really don't want any output at all, period. So we just want ampersand greater than def null, which is going to redirect anything that program sends to the null device, which is basically null. Okay, so we'll save that. We'll resource our file. We'll take a git branch properly this time. No more error messages. And we're going to git branch here. I'm not going to see any error messages on the screen, so that's good. I didn't change my prompt because I don't have it set. So what we'll do else, we want to change the prompt. Yeah, not put the branch in. So we'll put that on. We'll put space. Resource it. So basically, you can end up doing this a few times, but you will learn how to do these things. And you can make little tiny ones that you can share, and people can source them. They don't have to restart anything. So now, that's great. Everything's working, but I have to manually type in this git branch every time I want it to show me the branch. Well, I really don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is there's a built-in function which is called the prompt command. Right, down here. And if I set that, export prompt command, it's going to run this every time it's going to regenerate the prompt. So now as I change into my presentation folder, you can see we're on the master. If I say git branch, I see that we've got test use. If I say git checkout, test 1. Now I'm running test 1 branch right here. Right? So you can see how this is pretty easy once you get familiar with just running some basic commands. Because you don't have very many things you can do. You can do if statements, else, you can do while, you can do the basic loop things that you normally would do. But in this case, you're just dealing with everybody else's programs and console redirection. Right? Oops. So you just have to get familiar with the system. So find dot will give you all the files, folders, the files and folders and current folder structure. So if you're looking for something, find name, page. There's my example script. Right. So I do a lot of these things. I've been using Linux since '94. I don't really think about what I'm doing. So just stop.
Can I ask you a question related to this?
Sure.
I inherited a big, huge Java development environment, and they've got the class files mixed in with the source files, which is really fun looking for something. I'm wanting to grep for something.
Okay.
And I've tried to pipe find star-name.java into greps, because otherwise just grep star and wait for about 15 minutes for it to get through everything.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just 5, so it's outrageous. And I'm wondering if there's got to be a better way.
Okay, so, well, I don't know, like, so find has a lot of commands that you can do. That'll help get you through there. Now, of course, they don't tell you anything, so you have to go
Got to do man.
Alright, walk the file hierarchy down. You can put your own regular expressions in there. This can get real crazy. So what a lot of times people do is that there's other things. So like, say you're a C# developer and you've got a bunch of ban and object folders and you really don't want to deal with them, you want to delete them all because you want to just check it in and Git and you just want to delete them and you don't know about the Git going, right? Or you're just cleaning up your development environment because every time you build, something's still not getting built properly. It's got an old file and there's some weirdness going on because TFS is down. It's not going to check out your file folders and make any changes, right? I think this might have happened to you guys, so you just use our apps. So you can do like, I don't have any C# code here, but if I did this, we would do like that. So let's just pretend all these .sh files are my samples. I can pipe this output to xargs, which is going to change this to argument structure. It's going to put it out in the command path.
Okay.
All right, so I'll just do alright. So it's going to create the remove file command, right? I'm not actually going to run it this time. And it'll just do that pretty much instantaneously. All right, that's very useful. RNAME, of course, then has its own command list of -stat, of course, if it's a read-only file, we'll delete it. And RNAME dir will sort of do folder stuff. But if you do a RNAME -rf, you can say goodbye to your files, right? So you have to be real careful about that. Always do an echo first, and you're going to delete files, right? Make sure that you're going to get the files that you're looking for. So I have little scripts that when I run my build, I just delete them all, flip them up, because I was working remotely. I want to just copy all my files. I don't want to deal with anything. I delete all my bin object folders, flip them up, boom. Pipe it to the command, got all my files. When I want to do my deploy, I go to my release folder, I do all my other ones, I delete all my other files, find all my DFCs and DLLs, copy them in. And basically one-line statements, right? It's really like 3 or 4 lines. And it gets the job done really fast. Much faster than clicking on all the folders and you've got 15 or 20 or 30 projects inside of your solution. Now, of course, you could just use MS Build or any other tool, but I'm a man like that. So it works for me. I can do it much faster. Okay, so let's see. We've got our basic thing here, but we're not done. Right? I want to know when files are changing and how many files will change. Right? So we've got this little function here. We know what's going on. Right now, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to look at the file that I wrote this morning. So I'm looking for nothing. All right. So it's grep status. I'll read it out. Grep status says nothing to commit. It returns true. Show you one line at a time. Status. All right, you can see at the bottom, there's nothing added to commit. I'm sure files are present, so that's not what I want. That means that there's files that can change, right? So, oh, of course, I don't have my file. Source. My OS. Okay. So, it's that. Right? If I'm looking for something particular, I know that there's an example of SH. Let me add it in. Example. Oh, that's nice. Okay, git status. Nothing's a commit, right? So we've got a clean folder. That's what I'm looking for. So I do this script, and then we've got to put the double quotes. And it brings it back. I don't really want to see it. I want to know if it succeeded. So 0 is success in this case. So it's kind of backwards if we're thinking true is anything greater than 0. Right? But really, it's the error message that you're looking for. We've got no errors. We found what we're looking for. So the test that we're looking for, if we found no error, then just do the basic if branch. Else, we're going to go down here and figure out how many lines of stuff do we have that are actually files that have changed. So I'm going to create some files here. one, two, make up some nonsense files. So if I could get status, what they have here, they made it my job a little easier. They have the force one command, which just puts everything on one line for all your changes, so you don't have to count all the comment lines. Otherwise, I've had to grab, change all the comments. Of course, they put everything in comments anyway, so that it's the one thing. All these things here, so I would count or hash. So using this first one, I just want to know, oh, how many lines do we have, right? If I get the word count minus L, the number of lines, and there's 5 of them. All right, so we're almost there. As you see, this 5 is way off to the side, so we need to get rid of that data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call another program. Right. And of course, I don't know what I'm doing, so now it's going to interpret that white space for me and give me down to just the number 5, which is exactly what I want. So I've got 5 dirty files, or I think they need to be committed to the source tree. Okay, so we can go ahead and add that. And what helps is you can actually do this a couple different ways here. So if you're stuck onto a remote shell and you can't log in and you want Windows and do all that stuff, you can just echo it to your shell script file and then edit it in there. So greater than means a pin. Alright, pin for example. Go into our example. Anybody know the cut and paste command for that?
YY.
YY.
YY is copy, P is cut.
Oh, computers. Okay, so continue things. Alright, this is going to do us our word count. So all we're going to do is actually get it to like stop, but that's the wrong spot. So I'll just call it 30. Number. What? If
Scroll on all the way.
0 equals 0. You don't have any want to run then.
So why do you have to put the 0?
Because it doesn't interpret it properly. I get mixed results. So it's best to put in double quotes and have to put a space afterwards. If you don't put that space and you just try to do it like this, it's going to error on you. Because it's real picky about its parsing ability. It's not very, it's not very robust as far as when you use it in PowerShell or something else. So we're going to end our net. Next one equals branch. I need to color code and all kinds of fun stuff. And in this case, I'm just going to set it. Alright, so then I'm going to source this. So I have set my command prompt, so I'm going to export that. Okay, so I messed up something there, so I got too much white space. But you can still see that I'm on the test one branch, and I've got some files in the check in there. So if I just run I got one file in this check in because I modified the example where it's add, example. Or you can make it beep and you can do all kinds of stuff. I found that beeping was really annoying. But if you have people that you need extra help reminding themselves to check in, every time they do something, it's going to beep. I think they might check into it. Right? So we'll add it. Let's finish. Add it. Through the file. Alright, I'll set it. Pretty straightforward. So once we get what we like, we just add that to our bash RC, and you can call it with just sourcing it. But of course, we're not going to issue the bash RC, so just source it. We're good to go. We go into your documents. I should have some documents in here that I actually have. All right, and of course, if you've not seen, if you're wondering how I can type so fast, it's going to be in that character all the time. So it's a URL for sessions, dojo session. So that's the way you can show you how I'm on a big branch. So that's pretty much how you can build something real fast, right? Using a couple little things. And that's pretty much the basic workflow we're with it. You start testing it out, get a command, you start running commands, start playing around, then you start saving them off your script, and you just resource it every time you want to, and you read your data file. And of course, we can sit here for about a month and try to read all these things. So this is what the info page looks like, and they break it down by category. Installing Bash, I don't think if you're reading that, you probably have a problem. It should be already installed by the time you get the name of the page. But there's all kinds of stuff. So the good news is if you can learn Bash, you can pretty much work on any other operating system besides Microsoft Windows. And so, because everybody has some kind of version of Bash, right? And so that's just the basic Bash 2.0 syntax. The 3 where it has the regular expressions, I wouldn't have to do the grep and the send, all of the multiple commands would be built in. So I can do a get status, save that status to a variable, and use that same status multiple times throughout the process without having to repeat running the status. Which, as you can see, eventually, if you keep adding features, you'll add, you probably run this estimating 7 times. Just to get, and then as things change, you get weird results. So, you really don't want that. And of course, Bash,
So what's your test harness for putting together these scripts?
Another command line as well. If you guys know the unit testing framework, I'd be happy to learn and come back and show you guys some of that stuff. So what I basically do, so we can get some other stuff here that I found. Spaces, other features. Right, you want, your command line junkie, that's going to go to your photo library. Right, I already put a shell script in here somewhere. Okay, so we'll go in here. As you can see, it's pretty fast if you're not messing around. Right, so I've got some folder structures. This is iTunes. Right. That's it. Right, you can actually see all the folder structures. When I put an asterisk, it's going to put every command, it's going to escape that asterisk, interpret it to all the file folders that it sees. So I can see I got some JPEGs in here. So you can do something like this. Select the name. Well, I'll show you what's going on here. I'll just run an example. So what it's doing is giving me an option to automatically give me a menu system based off my file folders. So I press 2. Of course, I'm a nerd, right? So it's going to come up real fast, right? What it did is it just ran my a preview command for all the files, all the JPEGs in there. So if you wanted to see your whole folder real fast, and you wanted to give this to a user instead of having to type in all these different directory structures, or you can do this with pretty much anything. How this works is this is the preview command, which I just alias because I didn't want to type that in all the time. And so it just does a select folder and asterisk, right? Do whatever command I want to do with that. I'm going to fix it, and I just want to do a preview. And a folder, after that JPEG, and then in my loop. Right, so, preview doesn't exist because I didn't alias it in something, it's outside of the scope of my command. But,
so select takes an array and gives you a prompt.
Which I just learned that today. I didn't even know it existed, but I did a man bash. And I was going through the commands, trying to figure out how many screens I was going to have to make on my slideshow, and I was like, you know what, it's probably better just to show them how to use the map and man page, because this goes on all day.
Is there any resources that you use for looking up Bash stuff? Yeah,
so you can Google stuff. There's lots of Bash scripts on your computer already, most likely. All right. So, of course, I don't have permission to let that run. And it's just trial and error for me. I've been playing around in Linux for like however many years, 15 years. So you basically figure out things as you need them. We had a problem where we have at work where we have like 15,000, 20,000 images that were getting created a day, and people were like, "How are we going to load up 15,000 images and look at them and QA test them?" Right? The QA people were having a problem. So what you can do is I did the find command. After that JPEG, I did over sort, I did into a thing called split it into 100 byte files, used that to input into a program that created thumbnails, right? Everything ran in like 5 seconds. Of course, there's processing time, but you can break it into as many files as you want. And it's just like real easy. There's no necessarily point in making it gigantic. a pilot program to do something like that.
Do you have any of your I don't know if you set up your VPN access for work, because some of the stuff you've got for validating MLS data and processing that stuff, and that's some pretty hardcore stuff right there.
I can simulate something. Of course, I don't have all the tools here that I normally would have, because I thought I could do a sequence, and I don't have the full command. So I can explain what goes on at work. So I will. What we have is we have situations where we have a couple hundred FTP sites that we have to download from every day, sometimes multiple hours, throughout the day. So another thing to be aware of is if I schedule these tasks and if the task is already running, I don't want it to start downloading again and have a race condition, right? But you probably don't think of race conditions on a shell script. You're like, who's going to run this 50 times a day? But trust me, it can happen. So what you do is you do tests. So I create like log files, right? So I'll say, anybody want to download my MSDN stuff here? Office or Mac? Let me see. I'm pretty sure everybody in here with the Mac has MSDN already now. I wouldn't do this to you guys. Alright, so MSDN. Let's pretend I was getting these MSDN files, right? Let's pretend I had a W50 man, which was probably have on this computer. But I would do something like this. So I would create a log file. Right? Anything with a dot in front of it is going to be hidden by default from your typical file browser. So in your command line, you do -A to get all of your dot files along with it. So, hard drive space is going the way you don't know where you're probably going. Somebody hacked your computer. Typically, it's going to be a dot, some crazy command in your stuff. And that would be happening. So you create a log file, and then you just test F -F test for the file exists. Echo, yes, already running. Right, so we're already running. The log file again, I will keep processing, and then go ahead. Right, so that's how I keep my scheduled task. And then I have another scheduled task running that says if I have a log file that's over a day old, go ahead and just delete the log file and let it restart. So you're going to have layer over layer sometimes, but you have to realize that anywhere there's bash, typically it's a multi-user, system. So it's not really a desktop-based system. So people can be logging in all over the place, running all kinds of things. And you don't want somebody trying to debug something while the actual system is running. They want to know, hey, this is already running, or talk to somebody. All right. So if it is running, okay, let's see here. Find / let's just do this guy. This is all the files, right? So I'm running this, I want to back it up, and I want to make a log file of all my find commands. Let's just say log, and what you can do is Control-Z, it's going to pause it, EG sends it to the background. So if it's going to take a long time, and you want to keep going on, just let it go. So what you do, when that happens, is then you run the tail command, which brings that back into the current screen. So you can see stuff running. So typically, if you have anything that's going to be important, you're going to send your output to files, because you're not going to be able to watch it on one terminal. You can then tail it from any terminal you want and see your data as it's coming through. Right. Anything that you have running in the background, you're going to want to do something. Then you can always bring it back to the foreground, and you can't take the task, because it's still running on my session. So that's also useful. And of course, I would leave this file log, then you can grep it and do whatever you want to do. And it's very useful for things like file archiving. If you're zipping up files, you say, hey, there's only so many things you can get escaped from your command line, so you want to create a file that is your input file, and we can read unlimited number of files out of that. Because there is a limit. It's not going to let you use 100 megabytes of RAM on bash. It's just not going to do that. There's probably 65, 5, 35, that number. It's that number is generally your limit of the number of things that's going to escape. So if you have more than 65,000 files in a folder, you probably have an organization problem. But if you don't, you're going to have a problem inputting your files. You're going to then have to back up a step, do a file, use that file as your input for the next step, because your environment variables are not going to escape more than 65 days. That's just before you get that. So that's useful. So the other thing that's useful is you want to know you have this file, that you already downloaded the file today, right? So if you have the same file name and it's repetitive day after day after day, right? You want to know what today is, so you can touch a file, minus time. Oh, this is going to be fun. Let me get this first. Big busy district, right? So you can look at the man page, but you should be able to do here. Just like that. There we go. So I will look at the man page real fast. I haven't actually written very many shell scripts. I wrote them all mostly like 5 or 6 years ago. And they just keep working. So that's the good thing.
See, nobody really touches them anymore, do they? They just run.
Yeah, they really do just run. I should go through the format string, so we have one. I don't know why it's not going into it though. So, anyway, I can just.
I've noticed that you and I use Linux.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're used to.